Today we are kicking off a short answer question paper. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to work through the whole paper over a series of lessons, looking at how the short answer questions are asked and answered. So we're working with the February-March 2018 paper. It's a paper 42. This paper is called your theory paper for extended. Okay, and it's usually 1 hour, 15 minutes. So I'm guessing it's probably going to take us 3 lessons to get through it. Okay, it's very simple and straightforward. You answer directly on the question paper and you don't require any additional materials other than your standard pen, pencil, calculator, and ruler. So what have we got? Question 1. We kick off. Figure 1.1 is a branching key used to identify different species of bacteria. So we're starting off with a dichotomous key. And it works through a series of yes-no questions, and it has a through F underneath. So figure 1.2 shows 6 different species of bacteria. Use the key to identify the 6 different species of bacteria. Write the letters on the lines in figure 1.2. So you're not expected to know what these are, but you are expected to be able to work through the key. So let's start with this first one, this little bobbly one. So I think I'm going to zoom out a bit so that we can see questions and the pictures. Do the bacteria have flagella? Remember, if we have a bacteria, the flagella is the tail bit. Okay, so these ones do not, so it's a no for that. Do the bacteria have a spiral shape? No, they're rather blobby. Do the bacteria form a chain? Nope, they are definitely blobby. So F is our first one. The next one. Do the bacteria have flagella? Yes. So each time we start right at the beginning. Do the bacteria have more than one flagellum? Well, if we look at them, there's 1 bacteria, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3 flagella. So they don't have more than 1. No, which gives us A. Back to the beginning for the third one. Do the bacteria have flagella? No, they don't. Do they have a spiral shape? No again. Do they form a chain? Yes, they do. They're all beautifully aligned in a row, giving us E. That's a very funny looking E. Okay, it looks better there. So, moving a little bit down so we can see the next ones. Do the bacteria have flagella? Yes. Do they have more than 1 flagellum? Yes. Do they have the flagella attached at one end only? Yes. All on one end. So the answer is C. The next one. Do the bacteria have flagella? No. Do they have a spiral shape? Finally, yes, they do. So this is B. And then these last hairy, fairy ones. Do they have flagella? Yes. Do they have more than 1? Most definitely yes. And do the bacteria have flagella attached at one end only? Definitely not. Those are all over the place. And this is D. And if we look through it, A, B, C, D, E, F, 6 different bacteria, 6 different identifications. So that is a very nice example of how you use a dichotomous key. And it's always worth identifying all the way to that last one, just to be double sure. Don't go and assume that the last one is the missing letter. Always identify each one of them. So part 2. State the name of the kingdom the bacteria belong to. So straightforward, using our knowledge, the bacteria belong to the prokaryotes. And it is a simple statement of answer. Next question. Carrying on with the theme of bacteria, state one similarity between the structure of bacteria and the structure of viruses. So remember, our bacteria are a beautiful cell, it's a wall, and all sorts of bits and pieces, circular DNA going on inside them, some little tiny ribosomes, whereas our viruses are our little capsules, looking a little bit like something out of an alien movie. But viruses also have DNA inside there. So A similarity between bacteria and viruses would be that both of them have DNA, genetic material. So both bacteria and viruses contain genetic material. Now, we might also say that both bacteria and viruses contain protein, but that would be an alternative answer that we would have had to give from the beginning, because they asked us just for one similarity. So we don't want to give two. We want to follow the instructions in our questions always. If they ask for one thing, we just give one thing. They're only going to mark the first thing we give. So there's no point in giving 6 different ones in the hope that somewhere you've got something right. If they ask for one, they're only going to mark that first one. So make sure that first one is B1 is right. So figure 1.3 is a photomicrograph, so a picture taken with a microscope, of Vibrio cholerae, the bacterium that causes cholera. So we can see here is our bacteria with the flagellum, and the length here, 45 millimeters. Magnification is times 17,300. They then ask us, write down the formula that would be used to calculate the actual length of the bacterium, not including the flagellum, in figure 1.3. They're being a little bit sneaky because usually they ask you to calculate, but they're not. They're just asking you for the formula. So how would you calculate the actual length? What's that formula? Well, we have a beautiful triangle, I believe, that can help us here. Okay, so how would we do actual? Actual is image over magnification. So A equals I over M, but we don't want to just leave it like that. I mean, it's an answer. We want to say, okay, what is A? So we can say actual length equals length on image divided by magnification. So 45 divided by 17,300 would be how we do it. We get the actual length in millimeters, but they don't ask us to do that. So don't go and do it. Part 2. The actual length of the bacterium shown in figure 1.3 is 0.0026 millimeters. They've done the calculation themselves. Convert this value to micrometers. And they give you the space for your working, which means they want to see your working. So how do we convert millimeters to micrometers? We're going to times by 1,000. That's why we always measure in millimeters, because then it's so easy to convert into micrometers. So space for working, so 0.0026 times 1,000 equals 2.6 micrometers. So they've already given us the units here, so 2.6 is our final answer. So we've had quite a nice introduction to this paper. We've had quite a lot of just giving answers, and now they ask us something a little bit more fun. Describe and explain the effects of cholera bacteria on the gut. So 4 marks, which means we need 4 solid, really good points that we're going to make. So what's the first thing? We always talk about cholera. Cholera produces toxins, right? So we want to mention toxins. And then there's the movement of the chloride ions. And then there is osmosis. And then there is diarrhea. So now we've got 4 little words, but what that helps us do is it helps us to focus our answer. So we don't just sort of write squibbly squabbly all over the place words that we hope is going to get us marks. We've now got a way to step through our answer. So cholera bacteria produce toxins which cause fluoride ions to be secreted into the lumen of the small intestine. Good to mention the small intestine because gut is a general, not very specific term. We want that to be specific. You know, it's all about this small intestine. So they've produced toxins which cause fluoride ions to be secreted into the lumen. Okay, so, right, what happens next? Okay, that means because we've got that movement of chloride ions, we've created a water potential gradient. We've changed this water potential gradient of the small intestine. Okay, so this creates a water potential. Very important term, nice to use it. So once we have a water potential gradient, we have movement of water by osmosis. So water moves by osmosis, whoopsie, from the cells lining the small intestine, so the epithelial cells, okay, so we have loss of water. So we've got water coming out, okay? This also can lead to loss of salts from the blood, but we're talking about the effect of the cholera bacteria on the gut. Okay, so we have all this extra water in the lining, in the lumen of the small intestine, and that leads to diarrhea. So excessive amount of water, lumen creates diarrhea. So we actually haven't used all of the lines. I was trying to write quite neatly, and I was trying to write in a relatively normal size. But if I work through that, then I've definitely got 4 good points. I've used quite a lot of technical terms, and so I'm happy then with my answer. So in as much as I don't want you to write too little, if what you're writing is quality, don't then waffle to fill the lines. Okay, always make sure that your answers are short and punchy, technical, and to the point. So the last one, suggest one treatment for cholera. Well, how do we treat diarrhea? We treat with oral rehydration solution. It is important to keep the patient hydrated so that we can keep their osmotic potentials of their blood where it should be. Okay, we're replacing the water and the salt that are being lost. So moving on. That total 14 there, that indicates we've reached the end of question 1. So as we move now into question 2, we're going to be changing topic a bit. Okay, so any blank page is always called a blank page so that you know there's not supposed to be writing there that's been missed. And here we go for question 2. A study estimated the number of people with chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, COPD, in India. Data were collected from 2 groups of people, those who lived in cities and those who lived in villages. Figure 2.1 shows the results. So we have estimated numbers of people with COPD per million. Now that means that it's per million in the village and per million in the city, and then we can compare them. Because if we just had numbers of people, we can't really compare them because is it out of how many in the city versus out of how many in the village. So we've got comparative data, and we can see there's quite striking differences here. Here's our city down here in the dark and village up here. It's going up quite steeply between 1996 and 2016. So we've got a good idea of what's going on in our graph. We head towards the question. Compare the number of people with COPPD in cities with the number of people with COPPD in villages and suggest reasons for the differences. So what would be quite nice is if we state a comparison and then suggest a reason for that difference. Use the data in figure 2.1 to support your answer. So we need to give at least one good solid data point because there's going to be a mark allocated for using the data. So if we go back here and we have another thing, what we really need to do is, in order to use data, we need to understand this graph and like what are the real values. So we're going up 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. That's nice and straightforward. But then we see a lot of these blocks aren't actually on the line. So we need to understand our scale. So if we go up here where we're out of the way of the interesting things, we can see that there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 little blocks in a jump of 2. So 2 divided by 5 equals 0.4 per little block. So we'd be counting 16.4, 16.8, 17.2, 17.6, 18. And it's important that you know that because if you're going to quote the data from the graph, then you need to be able to read the numbers correctly. So let's have a think about what we want to say. I think the biggest contrast here is that this massive discrepancy between villages and cities. In all the years, the COPPD is so much higher in villages than in cities. So that would be my first point. Okay, so the number of people with COPPD is higher in villages than in cities every year. So what's nice is to tie it together, okay? Why would that be? Okay? Why would people in a village have a higher incidence of chronic obstructive pulmonary diseases than people in cities? Well, if you think about it, if you're in a village, how do you get to a hospital? How close is your nearest hospital? Okay, whereas if you're in a city, you're far more likely to have better access to healthcare. If you're in a city, you're far more likely to have education from that healthcare sector than if you're in a little village. So 2 big reasons for this one. Okay, we could say this could be due to better healthcare and more awareness and education in cities. So that would then mean that cities would have lower incidence of COPPD. So that was our first one. Now we've got to think about another one. And this pattern of increasing every year in the villages, and certainly from 2001 to 2016, we're increasing in the cities. So, number of people with COPD increases every year in, oh, hold on, We're comparing. So from 2001. In both villages and cities. So we have one contrast, villages higher than cities. Now we have one similarity, both going up. So in 2001, let's have a look at what our data points are. So we need to read this one. This one, if you see, nice and closely, it's sitting halfway between here, which lines up perfectly with 3. And this one here is also sitting halfway between, which is going to line up with 11. So we have in villages, number of people with copied increases from, how many did we say? 11 all the way up to, in 2016 we have 16. Right on that fat line. From 11 people per million in 2001 to 16 people per million in 2016. Just go back and double check. 2016, 16, and estimated numbers of people, yeah, people per million, 11 per million. So when the reason you have that blank page just now is because this is going to show side by side, so that you got your graph and you've got your answer page. So it makes it easier than sliding up and down like we're doing here. Okay, so that's our in villages, but of course we're comparing, contrasting, so we always also want to give our data points for our cities. So in cities, the number of people with copied increases from 3 to, where are we sitting in here, dark one for cities, coming across on this line, zoom in or I'm going to lose my eyesight, and it is bang on 6. So we're going from 3 to 6. From 3 people per million in 2001 to 6 people per million in 2016. So we've got a good collection of comparisons, because we've got one similarity and one difference. We've got a good number of suggestions in that we've suggested for our difference, but as we're checking through this answer, we realize we haven't made any suggestion as to why they're both increasing. So if we think now, what would cause increasing copied in both villages and cities? Well, there's one big problem that's going to cause it everywhere, and that's pollution. With increasing pollution, you're going to have increased copied. Okay, so increased number of cases could be caused by increasing pollution in cities and villages. So now we've got comparisons and suggestions. We've got one similarity, one difference, suggestions for both, and we've got data points, and we filled that full area for us to put our answer in with good quality information. And that is what is really key. It's not about fluff, it's not about waffle. It is about getting really good quality data or good quality answers, being technical, and that's how you then answer these longer questions.